So good day, everyone. We are here again to educate and enlighten you about your tax obligation. So I am Oluwatosin, Chartered Accountant and a managing partner of Tozon Consulting. At Tozon Consulting, we handle all your taxes, both filing and every other compliances, every tax, we handle it. And we'll also do accounting services, audit services, preparing your financial statement, audit annual reports, business development, registration, filing, implementation of accounting software, training, and every other business compliances that your business needs to stay compliant in Nigeria as a responsible business. So today, we are bringing to you personal income tax in Nigeria, the compliances and filing in Nigeria. So on 26th of June 2025, there was a new tax reform that was signed into law, which will be taking effect 1st of January 2026. So want to enlighten you for you to know your tax obligation ahead of next year as an individual taxpayer, both in paid employment and as a business owner. So under personal income tax, we have two taxes for P.A.Y.E and for direct assessment. P.A.Y.E are taxes that are paid by an employee in a paid employment of an organization, which is done on a monthly basis, and the tax is being filed on 10th of the following month after the salary has been paid. It is done by the organization that employ the staff into their employment. The direct assessment, on the other hand, is done by the business owner. If you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, you have your personal business, you file for direct assessment, and this is done once in a year on any salary or earning that you make during the 12-month calendar. So for the tax reform bills that was signed into law by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, taking effect next year, January, there are some exemptions, that are being put in place for individual business owner. Even though currently in the current tax law, which will be ending this December 31st, any employee that is earning 70,000 and below, which is minimum wage, will be exempted from paying tax. And the same thing will still, be happening next year. So exemption for individuals earning 800,000 in a year or less will be exempted, both for P.A.Y.E and direct assessment. So there will be a progressive rate of up to 25%, right, in the next year, personal income tax for higher income earners. So this is meant to reflect the inflation, and the idea is to ensure that the rich pay more of tax, while the poor are, so to say, pay less of tax. And as against the consolidated relief that we have currently, it will be abolished. It has been abolished, though, which will be taking effect next year. The new relief that have now been brought into place is rent relief, and it is 200,000 or a maximum of 500,000, for rent relief, which is used to replace the consolidated relief allowance. Then we have the compensation exemption of up to 50 million for loss of employment or injury. So the current tax system that we have in place now, which will end this December 31st, is, for example, if an employee is earning 2 million in a whole year, this is for a whole year. The relief, which is personal relief, is earned income, this 2 million times 20%. The earned income, that's 20% of this 2 million plus 200,000. That will be the relief. What will be removed from the total income, right, to get the taxable income. So for this current tax, under 2 million, we have 600,000 as a consolidated relief allowance. So 2 million minus 600,000 will give us 1.4 million, which will be the taxable income. So this taxable income of 1.4 million will be subjected to the graduated tax rate, which is first 300,000 is taxed at 7%, which is 21,000. The next 300,000 is taxed at 11%, which is 33,000. The next 500,000 is at 15%, which is 75,000, as you can see it. The next, tax rate is 19%. So we don't have up to 500,000, which is the next tax. The remaining amount under this 1.4 million is 300,000, tax at 19%, which is 57,000. So if you add all this together, you have 186,000. So the other tax rates, right, we don't have any amount for it. That's why we have 0 here. And the next one after 19% is 21%, then 24% for income above 3.2 million. So this is the current tax rate table that we are using currently in Nigeria, and it will end by this 31st of December. So looking ahead of next year, under the Nigerian Tax Act (NTA), effective 1st of January 2026, for the same income of 2 million, the relief, the allowance that will be granted is lower of 500,000 or 20% of annual rent. So the lower, we have this 500,000 or 20% of annual rent. So we assume the rent is 2 million rather, 2 million. So 2 million of 20%, we have 400,000. So the lower of these two figures is 400,000. So we have it here. So 400,000 less 2 million, we have 1.6 million. So we subject it to graduated tax rates for the taxable income of 1.6 million after the allowance has been given. So we have the first 800,000 is exempted. So 800,000 from this 1.6 million, right, is exempted from tax. So it is exempted from tax, as you can see it in the table of this tax. So if you less 800,000 from this, you are going to get 1.2 million. So you're going to get, you are going to get 1.6 million less 800,000. You should be getting, that should be 800,000. Yes, you should have 800,000 left. So you should have 800,000 left, right? So this 800,000 will be subjected to a tax rate of 15%. So if you subject 800,000 to 15%, you will have 120,000. So you have 120,000, which will be the tax rate under the next year tax system. So if you look at it, the first 800,000 has been exempted from tax. So if you less 800,000 from 1.6 billion, you should have 800,000. That's 800,000 times 2. will give you 1.6 million. So you've seen that the taxpayer will enjoy 800,000 for the first tax rate, while the next amount remaining will be subject to 15% of the remaining balance, which is 800,000, and that will be 120,000. So we don't have any other figure again after a year. So that's why we are, nil under year. So we don't have anything here again. So you can see that if you compare it with this current tax system, which is 186,000 as 186,000 as tax, against the next year tax, which is 120,000. So the employee or the business owner will be enjoying, a reduction of his tax by 66,000 reduction, which is good enough. This is to reflect the inflation, the high cost, of product and services. So is a commendable, tax reform, by President, Tinubu in a way, right? Which, although we still hope that the price of goods and services will still come down, and the poor, people, those that are earning little income, will be able, to survive, right? So you can see the table of the next year tax system, which in a way is favorable. However, for this rent relief, the tax authority might request the taxpayer to provide the rent receipt to be able to claim, the total, amount for the rent, relief. So we look ahead, of next year, and we hope that this will be totally favorable for the tax, payer. So next year, January 1st, 2026, this will be taking effect. So we as a consulting firm, we help individual to, navigate, this new tax reform that have been signed into law, so that, they can enjoy the maximum benefit in ensuring that they pay the right and the correct tax, both for individual and for organizations. And feel free to call us for all their tax, obligation, for registration, for monthly remittances, for annual filing, and every other, things that revolve around taxes, accounting, auditing, CSA registration, and the likes. We handle it for organization, seamlessly. So who collects personal income tax? Personal income tax is collected, handled, and administered by the State Internal, Revenue Service, which we call SIRS. For Lagos State, it is called LIRS, Lagos State Internal Revenue Service. For Ogun State, we have OGIRS, Ogun State Internal Revenue Service. And each state, all over Nigeria, handle their own personal income tax for all residents in the state. I want to clarify this. If a company is situated in Lagos and the employee is living in Ogun State, the company that is in Lagos State will file the employee, personal income tax P.A.Y.E to OGIRS. So it is where the employee is living that the tax will be remitted to, and not where the company is situated. For business owner only pay their own tax once in a year, which we call direct assessment. So Federal Inland Revenue Service also collects personal income tax, right, for military, for police, those are in the armed forces, and for foreign services. For residents of Federal Capital Territory, will actually pay their own personal income tax to FCT, right? FCT, Internal Revenue Service. So non-resident company in any income in Nigeria, even though they are not in Nigeria, will also remit their tax to the state where they actually, reside when they come to Nigeria, or where they stay more, right, when they come, to Nigeria, of any income that they earn in Nigeria. So what is the filing time and deadline? For P.A.Y.E, pay as you earn, there is a monthly remittance, right, which must be remitted on or before 10th of the following month after the tax has been deducted from month, right? Personal income, tax for direct assessment, business owner must be filed, which is once in a year, within 90 days after the tax year end. The tax year end is 1st of January of every year and 31st of January. So meaning that from January to March of the following year, the employer, that's the business owner, must ensure that their tax are filed right before the deadline to avoid penalty, because it is better to pay within the stipulated time than to pay after the stipulated time and be paying for penalty, because the penalty, will be more when we come to next year. By next year, tax penalties, tax, delaying and not filing, will be costly, right? So that's why we are here as tax consultant, as auditor, to ensure that you file all your taxes as at when due. So you can call us for your individual tax filing, for your direct assessment, for your pay as you earn, right? So that you can face your business while we handle all your taxes for you on a monthly basis and on a yearly basis. So why employee in a paid employment will file their annual returns on or before 31st of January after the tax year end, right, to the state authority, where the employers and the employee reside. So we handle this tax, free, tax stress-free services, for you. You can, call us on our contact or WhatsApp us on 070-5689-8048 or 08150775328, or email us at tosjohnconsulting@gmail.com, or on our website tosjohnconsulting.com. So feel free to reach out to us, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel for more, tax, information that is coming up from time to time, which will be, enlightening you, educating you, giving you awareness of all your tax obligations and responsibility as, a responsible citizen of Nigeria. So like our YouTube channel, subscribe, share, and, follow us on all our social media, and we'll be glad, to receive your message, your call, your chat, your email, right, to handle all your tax obligations. And until we meet next again in the next, video that we'll be bringing to you on all your tax obligation, like VAT, value added tax, withholding tax, your company income tax, and every other taxes, both for corporate, and for individual, right? Just stay responsible, stay, as a law-abiding citizen of Nigeria, and feel free to reach out to us to handle all your tax matter. Thank you.